Tonight on Black Health Now, a COVID update. Is your home safe? Can we solve this problem with gun violence? Plant-based milk. Is it better for your GI tract? And we've got 5 tips to help you have a more restful sleep. All that and more.
Black Health Now, your weekly check-in on how your family can get and stay healthy. Joined by experts from around the world, here are Dr. Mike LeNoir and Ellis Dean.
Thank you for joining us. We also have one more person that is part of the Doc and Dean crew, and that is the doc himself. You know him as Dr. Michael LeNoir. He's an asthma and allergy specialist, as well as the past president of the National Medical Association. How are you this evening?
I'm pretty good this evening. I had a good week. My daughter got married. We were kind of concerned about when that was going to happen.
Congratulations.
But I'm a little stressed between nuclear war from Ukraine and Herschel Walker. I don't know what to worry about more than anything else. But obviously, that's not why we're here to comment on the politics. We're here to talk about health. Good show today. We're going to talk about all the things that you mentioned, certainly keeping your home safe, gun violence, plant-based milk, and finally in with some sleep tips. I think it's a pretty good lineup for people to stay with us for the full 30 minutes. But as usual, we start a little bit talking about COVID. I think, warnings from the CDC sometimes it's like crying wolf at times. They said last week that if we didn't get 80% vaccination by March of 2023, there would be 16,000 cases per day and 1,200 deaths per day. And so most people are not really getting this vaccine. So it would seem that's an ironclad prediction. However, I saw something today that said the winter may be milder, so who knows? I still believe that as an immunologist that you got to get these vaccinations, and I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it at all for children, and I'm not seeing people get that fourth booster, the Omicron specific booster. So I don't think we're going to have an optimal outcome. I think people should still get vaccinated, but it seems to be a bit of a stretch. For Black people, a number of studies came out this week that the reason we are hesitant and don't get the treatment that we need is not because of Tuskegee, but more because we just don't like the system and the way it treats us when we do encounter it. And so consequently, we had to overcome all of these barriers to get to a place where we're comfortable and at home with this virus. I think we're a long way from that.
Well, I think also, it was packaged initially as, oh, you get vaccinated, you're good, right? And that's the messaging that was received by Black and white America, all Americans. Everybody thought, hey, if I get this vaccine, we're good, right? And we don't. And then, it was one update, one booster, and then it became 2, and now we've got another updated vaccine, and now we're talking about having to do this every year annually, like we do the flu. And so I think there's some fatigue mixed in. I do think that we have to revamp and put some energy back into the messaging to get people to understand that, to recognize that this is a virus and the virus is constantly changing. And because of that, we have to constantly update the vaccines to continue to combat the virus, or those deaths that you mentioned will continue to rise. So we've got to be more diligent about it and be more concerned. I am a little concerned when I go out and see people moving about like nothing is, that COVID is still around, but is what it is. We got to get better messaging out there.
Yeah, well, I think that we have to stand for the science. Science says that we need these boosters, so we have to continue to bring you the science. And the science says that if we don't do what we're talking about doing, that the number of cases will go back, especially among people over 65. And who is disproportionately impacted by that? Black people. And so consequently, we need to really kind of pay attention to the science.
If I could just add one thing to folks, if you're watching, if you are unvaccinated, and I know people are using the term booster, you can get this vaccine, right? So it's not like you can get it as your initial. You'll just have to get 2 if you're getting the Pfizer or Moderna version of this, but you can use this as your initial vaccination. So I know people are saying booster, but you can get it if you're unvaccinated, if you've never been vaccinated.
Good idea. All right. Well, I think there are a number of other issues we need to take care of today. One of those is your home safe? Mr. Dean, what are you going to tell people about that?
Well, it's funny. It's like when we say that, I gave that tease at the top of the show. It was like, is your home safe? And so people start thinking about, I got to get one of these devices to, lock my doors and cameras and things like that. But what we're talking about is your home safe for breathing. Is your home safe for your respiratory? And what we understand is this: people like to have clean homes, hopefully. And when we clean our home, we use a lot of chemicals, and those chemicals can irritate our airways because they don't have a filter. So if you're not wearing a mask or some sort of filter, I know mask is a dirty word right now, but if you're not wearing some sort of mask or filter, those chemicals and pollutants can irritate our airways. If we get too much exposure to them, it can have long-term effects. And it's not just the chemicals from like Clorox. We know we like to get that Clorox smell, the ammonia. I remember cleaning with ammonia as a child. My mother had us cleaning with ammonia, and I would do the ridiculous thing as a child, because I didn't know any better, would mix the Clorox and ammonia, from time to time to get that extra clean. But we have to be careful because that is irritating our airways. There's some other things that are also irritating our airways: smoke, pet dander. If we've got some mold potentially in some areas of our home that are not being detected, carbon monoxide, radon, all of these different things can irritate our airways, and that could lead to other health conditions, including lung cancer, chronic bronchitis, COPD, a number of health and breathing related conditions that can have long-term impacts on us. So, Doc, you're the man, you're the asthma and allergy specialist. What can people do in order to prevent these things from happening while trying to stay, safe in their own home?
I think the two biggest things are smoke detectors and carbon monoxide monitors. Every year, a number of people die of carbon monoxide poisoning, and we really don't know that much about it as a community. But I think those are two things that you really have to have. I think if things smell bad in the house, obviously, you've got to deal with that. But I think having smoke detectors and having carbon monoxide monitors are two things that everybody should have to keep themselves safe. And just be reasonable. If things don't look right, smell right, get out. And you smell gas, just get out of there. But I think that those two things I think people should always have. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about gun violence. I'm Dr. Mike LeNoir with Top of Mind. Recently, President Biden suggested that the COVID-19 pandemic is over. I don't believe it. Unless you feel that 350 deaths in this country per week and 10,000 worldwide is enough success to relax. Most of us have moved on, and with each new vaccine, fewer and fewer people are taking this infection seriously. But just because the Omicron variant is not the killer that the Delta variant was, does not mean that a new variant will be less dangerous. I still suggest avoiding unnecessary crowds and wearing your mask sensibly. If you think you need it, you probably do. Please still consider getting vaccinated. And for more information, go to our website at aewellnessproject.org. Listen to our podcast at Black Doctors Speak. Black Doctors Speak on any podcast channel. Top of Mind is sponsored by the African American Wellness Project. All right, welcome back. I think all across the country, in every major city, people are concerned about gun violence. I live in the city of Oakland, and every night the news leads off with at least 3 murders in the Bay Area. We've had record numbers, and that's true in every city: Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago, all over the place. I think many of the political decisions this time will be made on the basis of violence. We talked a lot about gun violence, and we go to our expert, Dr. Ron Bailey. Dr. Ron Bailey in 2018 wrote a book called Gun Violence. He's the chief of psychiatry and chairman of diversity at LSU, and he is an expert in this area. And we all already talked about, the number of incidents across the country. But the assumption has been always, from my perspective, that if we had better mental health services, things would be somewhat better. I don't believe that's a solution to the problem. But Dr. Bailey has a unique take on this whole issue. So let's see what he has to say. Everybody points to increasing access to mental health as a solution to this problem. What say you about that?
Well, I'd say two things. I'm very happy to hear, as a 32-year practice psychiatrist, I, like you, from Texas, with the Mayo University of Texas. Like you, I think you Dallas and me Galveston, and I've worked for my entire career in Texas and other states as well, trying to argue for more support and resources for mental health, for diagnosis, treatment, and care. So I'm all for that. I think it has remarkable value and it'll show long-term benefits in many areas. Many people will live a better life and hopefully be a lot less homelessness and distraught individuals, and hopefully be a lot less violence as well. However, and it's a big however with all capitals and bold, I would challenge and objectively, and object to a construct that if you address the mental health problem singularly, you go address the violence problem interpretally. Because that implies that this issue is all about those who have pre-existing diagnoses of psychiatric illness. And that's just patently untrue. Many people who engage in such behavior that's violent have never been diagnosed as having a mental illness, if you will, let alone a chronic mental illness over more than 6 months of time period. So we've got to dig deeper than to just look for a very quick, snap of the fingers, response that if we could just address the mental illness problem, this violence problem will go away. We've got many people who engage in violent acts who have never been previously assessed or diagnosed as having mental illness. We've got to address all potential risk, many of whom have mental illness, most of whom, though, do not.
Well, thanks, Dr. Bay Ellis. I think this gun violence issue, man, we've gotten so bad here in the Bay Area that you're almost afraid to go out to restaurants or certainly not bars or theater, and you don't want to go by yourself, and because many of these things are absolutely senseless. A lot of them on the freeways, a lot of them unsolved. I don't know where we go with this.
Well, there's a phenomenon called the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And so whenever we have these mass shootings, what happens is we get a lot of conservative media run out, say it's not the guns, it's not the guns, it's not the guns, but the availability, the access, the ease at which people can attain guns does make it easier for violence to escalate very, very quickly. And so when you're talking about that and you're protecting the manufacturers, you're continuing to flood. You got more guns than people in this country right now. There is going to be an uptick, and especially when you're sowing the fueling the anger that people have about a myriad of political hot topics. When you are over policing certain community groups, there are social barriers to getting out of your condition. All of these things become a powder keg, and that can lead to all types of violence. And when you have like I said, the proliferation of guns in many areas, you're going to get gun violence.
Yeah, interesting take from Dr. Bailey. We assumed that mental health would be the help, but he says most of the people who kill and do these big, crazy kinds of mass shootings have never been diagnosed with mental problems.
Right.
And so he's not certain that solving the problem has to do with mental health. But I know one thing, we're all going to be looking for solutions as we move forward. And to a certain extent, a lot of the politics in this country may be determined by guns. All right, so we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about plant-based milks. If you've tested positive for COVID-19 and have a common risk factor for serious disease, there are several treatments that can help you. Paxlovid is a 5-day course of pills that leads the list of recommended treatment. In unvaccinated people at risk for serious disease, Paxlovid was 90% effective in cutting the risk of hospitalization and dying from COVID. The drug is cheap, but hard to get. You need a prescription from a doctor. So contact yours, visit a Test to Treat site, or try online urgent care. But be prepared to test quickly, know your risk factors, make sure insurance covers it, and find a pharmacy that stocks the drug. Always remember it's important to get vaccinated and get boosted. This health tip is sponsored by the African American Wellness Project. If you've tested positive for COVID-19 and have a common risk factor for serious disease, there are several treatments that can help you. Paxlovid is a 5-day course of pills that leads the list of recommended treatment. In unvaccinated people at risk for serious disease, Paxlovid was 90% effective in cutting the risk of hospitalization and dying from COVID. The drug is cheap, but hard to get. You need a prescription from a doctor. So contact yours, visit a Test to Treat site, or try online urgent care. But be prepared to test quickly, know your risk factors, make sure insurance covers it, and find a pharmacy that stocks the drug. Always remember it's important to get vaccinated and get boosted. This health tip is sponsored by the African American Wellness Project.
Hello, I'm Andrea Bro with Healthy Healing Eats. Today we're going to talk about plant-based milk. There are milks made from nuts and grains, and even milk made from a bean. So let's talk about their nutritional value. Plant-based milk is perfect for people with slow digestive systems. Yes, they are low in protein, but they are also low in saturated fat and calories. They are lactose and cholesterol free, chock full of fiber, and provide many of their plants vitamins and minerals. Almond milk is one of the most popular. It is a low carb, low calorie, magnesium rich, controls blood sugar levels, drink. It's high in antioxidants like vitamin E, known to lower dementia risk, and a good source of healthy fats. An 8-ounce glass is 41 calories. Oat milk is a good alternative for those allergic to nuts and soy. However, it is high in carbs and calories. Its soluble fiber imparts a creamy quality and slows digestion, contributing to a feeling of fullness, which helps stabilize blood sugar levels. An 8-ounce glass is 120 calories. Cashew milk is high in vitamin E, iron, zinc, copper, phosphorus, and manganese. It is creamy and has no natural sugars, which means no blood sugar spikes. An 8-ounce glass of homemade is 71 calories. Soy milk is bean-based milk. It tastes the closest to cow's milk, but without the fat. And unlike others, it's a good source of a complete plant-based protein. Soy milk contains omega-3 fatty acids, the healthy fat our body cannot make independently. Omega-3s are known to help lower the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. Claims that soy amplifies and increases the risk of breast cancer have been disproven. An 8-ounce glass is 80 calories. For more information on plant-based milks, check out our website at healthyhealingeats.com. Thanks for stopping by today. Take good care of yourself, and I'll see you next time on Living Well.
Well, I think I may have to run out and give me some almond milk or some soy milk.
I'm not sure, man. After what I hear, I might take abdominal pain. You know what I mean? I don't know. Man.
I give it up my ice cream though. I can't use soy ice cream.
Yeah. And it's almost like Russian roulette. You can't ever tell what's going to really hurt you and what's not. But plant-based, I have to agree with her. People don't really know they have this many alternatives, and we have to thank her for bringing that to our attention. And she'll be with us on most of our programs talking about elements and nutrition. I hope people pay attention. All right, now we're going to go into a subject that is near and dear to my heart. My sleeping patterns are probably well known in my family. I go to sleep early. I wake up around 1. I stay when those letters you get from me at 4 in the morning. It's because I'm back awake for 2 or 3 hours, and I'm struggling to try always through the years to find some things that I could do to get better sleep. So I've turned to everybody else. I may as well turn to you instead.
Well, sleep should be part of your health and wellness routine. It is definitely like you should be eating right. You should be exercising. You should be protecting your mental health. you also should be getting the proper amount of rest. And so tonight we're going to give you 5 tips on how to get a wonderful night's sleep. So the first thing you should do is set a schedule, right? You should sleep on a regular schedule as much as possible. I know we're working, we've got different work schedules, we've got kids, we've got all these other things, but try to set and stick to a schedule as much as possible. An adult needs probably somewhere between 6 to 8 hours of good uninterrupted sleep each night. The second thing we should be doing is no TV, computers, distractions. You've got to eliminate all those unnecessary distractions so you can get that full REM sleep. It takes about 3 hours to get to that full REM sleep, and we should go through 2 cycles each night. That's why we say 6 to 8 hours is the ideal. So eliminate distractions. Don't fall asleep with the TV on. I know I'm guilty of that. Don't have the computer. Don't lay there looking at your phone. Really eliminate those distractions. Also, another thing I'm kind of guilty of myself is you've got to avoid the caffeines, you've got to avoid the alcohols, you've got to avoid the nicotine late at night. All those things elevate our blood pressure, makes it hard for us to go to sleep. And so that will also disturb our sleep so we don't get that full rest that we need to because our body is continually working. So we've got to eliminate the alcohol, we've got to eliminate the caffeine, we've got to eliminate the nicotine. Also, another thing is I found interesting is don't lie in bed awake, right? You should go to sleep. When you get into bed, you should be ready to go to sleep, and you should fall asleep very, very quickly. There are some great apps that you can use, like Calm, that'll give you some soothing noises to help that accelerate that sleep process. But don't just lie in bed awake. And finally, you should avoid sleeping medications. And so all of those things that we go to the doctor, say, Doc, I need something to help me sleep. It's a short-term fix, but it can cause a long-term problem. You should be going to sleep naturally. So that means don't eat too late because your body's going to be still trying to digest. And don't, use those substances that we talked about, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine. Get your body to get some sleep, and that you'll see that your exercise and your eating routine will be vastly improved if you get the right amount of rest each night.
Yeah, it's a wonder I'm still married because my wife gets in bed, man, she goes to sleep right away. She sleeps for 8 hours, and I'm over here struggling trying to get to sleep at 3 and 4 in the morning. I think that some of the tips that you give us, I'm deliberately not engaged. When I went to see the sleep specialist, he said, you don't go to sleep because you want to be awake. And so consequently, that's something that you have to overcome. But I think these are really good decisions to make, especially avoiding those medicines like Ambien. I mean, I took some Ambien, man, I didn't know where I was for 3 hours. And sometimes they say people drive downtown and go to the store, do all kinds of stuff on some of these medications. So it's always better to develop good sleeping habits. One of the best tips I ever got was that if you know that you sleep about 5 hours, then you start going to bed. You can get up at 7, go to bed at 2, and then gradually try to stretch out and go to bed at 1, then go to bed at 12. But and if you're having a lot of trouble, it's impacting your family, it's impacting your work schedule, then see a sleep specialist. They do have a lot to offer.
What also a good sleep aid is exercise. So if you're finding you're not sleeping, getting to sleep, a strenuous workout will help you get your sleep because your body will be tired and it'll want to recover and restore, and then that will help you sleep.
Well, it's funny thinking about sleep, but our program went by pretty quickly. I mean, obviously, we always have a lot to say and a lot of information to give. But that's our point. That's our principle. And that's why we're here, is to give you the latest information we can on health issues related to African Americans and some tips that you can use in your everyday life. So the program is Doc and Dean. It's on every week, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And once again, on the weekends, we want you to send us some information and leave in the chat room if you have a subject you want us to discuss. But each week we'll troll, I've learned that term, we'll troll the literature to find those articles and that information that Black people need to keep themselves healthy. So as always, we end our program by saying, health is your biggest asset. So protect it. We'll talk again next week.